Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today for Monday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. And we're going to kick off the month of May in very fun way, very festive way with my colleague Justin Nielsen here. Why not? I guess the first full week of May, that is. And we've got a lot to talk about, Justin. What are we going to be hitting on today?
Well, certainly we're going to have to talk about these indexes hitting resistance. But look, there's still a lot of stocks out there that are looking pretty decent. And so we'll talk about a few of those that are setting up, including Lifetime, the fitness area, and also RBA, which is the old Ritchie Brothers auction house. And then finally, a little bit of defense, aerospace defense, that is, with
Yeah.
Loar. And I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Do you know how to pronounce that? I've only seen it
No,
written.
lore
Okay.
is, yeah,
LOAR,
LOAR,
just in
ticker
case people need to know
LOAR.
what we're talking about.
Exactly. All right. Well, we'll get to those stocks. And we have to look at Palantir earnings out after the bell. You and I both own that one. So we'll check in on that as well. All right. First, let's take a look at the major indexes. The NASDAQ today down about 0.7%. And we'll talk about the resistance levels that we're keeping an eye on. The S&P 500 down 0.6% on the day. The Dow down about 0.25% right at that 50-day line there. We did see outperformance from small caps today, Justin, unless I don't know what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing a different number. But so
There was
no.
a lot of changes at the end of the day here.
Okay. So maybe a
So,
little bit of a glitch in the source I normally look at.
yeah,
But yeah.
if you're delayed at all, you're, very behind the curve because things changed a lot.
Yeah, they did. Okay. Oh, there it goes. My screen that I look at for my data set just updated down about 7.7%. That makes more sense here. Okay, so let's circle back to the Nasdaq, Justin. We've had two really incredible weeks, you could say, coming off the lows here, and now a bit of a pause.
Yeah, so, look, when you come up off the lows that quickly, it is just very reasonable to not expect it to go up every day. Look, if you go to the S&P 500,
Right.
we had a lot of days up in a row.
Nine
So
day
the
win
fact that
streak.
we took a little pause here today, so that's not really a big deal. But this also kind of gives the indexes a little bit of time to kind of digest these gains, and that is normal. That's healthy for indexes to do. We're above the 50-day moving average line, above the 21-day moving average line, but that 200-day moving average line is going to loom a little large right now. We'll have to see if we can get above that and stay above it, because that's the important part, staying above these levels. So we are getting a little bit more participation. We're seeing more areas, coming on strong, more stocks breaking out and holding those gains, which is important. But we're not out of the woods yet. There's still a lot of work to be done. So you don't have to feel like, oh, we're up so much, I got to make sure that I, pile in to make sure I don't miss it. Because if you kind of started with an incremental way in, then you're getting progress, you're getting cushion. You've got an earnings season, as we'll talk about, so that does make things a little bit trickier. But that kind of is a better way to go, as opposed to, oh, now I'm feeling like I need to get in or I need to catch up. And sometimes you'll go in too heavy only to have a pullback happen, and then you're just out of phase with the market. So I think that, again, right now what we're showing is some very healthy action. But look, we could go either way at this point. We could go skyrocketing higher, to new high ground in pretty quick order in a V-shaped recovery, or this could be a little bit of this middle of the W and we could see another leg down. So you kind of have to wait for the market to tell you which way it's going to go and be ready to move either direction.
Exactly. Yeah, we're at a key juncture here. And for the Nasdaq, not only do we have that 200-day looming large, as you mentioned, but also 18,000. We came up right to that level. That marked high from late March of 18,281. So
Mhm.
we'll keep an eye on those levels as well. But we've come up a lot. Like you said, now is not the time to be piling in. I know Swing Trader was locking in some profits on Friday. We'll have
Right.
to see how this next week of trade unfolds. Like you said, are we going to get that digestion? What would be great is if we could see breakouts hold and maybe some follow-on entries. But that 200 day, I think, is going to tell us a lot about what we could potentially be in for. And the Nasdaq 100 QQQ, we're right there.
Yeah.
So maybe this could be that either that leading indicator, either which way. Are we going to clear it or are we going to roll?
hmm And it's a reminder that you don't have to do something every day. Some days it's just about kind of watching and waiting. And I feel like today was one of those days.
Yes, totally
Mhm.
agree. Okay, next on the list, let's check in on gold. So this had a nice day of outperformance today. GLD up 3%.
Yeah. So again, that's not usually what we like to see, right? Lately, it's been if gold is working, not much else is. So the fact that you had gold, showing some strength today, and it's interesting because IBIT, which has been, we talked about this on IBT Live today. It's been kind of a mixed personality. Sometimes it's your safe haven, sometimes it's your risk on. That got whacked a little bit today. I do have a position myself in IBIT.
Me
We
too.
got into this a little bit later on Swing Trader, so we took this off because we just didn't have that much cushion. But I had shares that I had from before. So, but if you look across the sectors, pretty much every sector was down. Energy coming in the worst today, and Staples doing the best. So, well, actually, Staples doing the best except for XLC. The communications did a little bit better today, but a lot of that is, remember, you got two big stocks in there, Meta being one of them, and Meta, clearing its 200-day moving average line and its 50-day moving average line, and Google having, a pretty much flat action, but that's above its 50-day.
Yeah. Okay. Let's check out the stocks you wanted to highlight, Justin, starting with Lifetime Group Holdings, the ticker here LTH. I do own a position in this one. It's on the verge of a breakout ahead of earnings this week.
Yeah, so this is we've seen a lot of double bottoms in this market, and this is just another example of one of those. I also want to kind of point out, you see those little ants, we call them, those little black dots that have kind of occurred on the way up. That's something that shows a lot of power with a stock. Now, I usually myself don't do buying when I see those ants, but it's something that tells me, hey, there's been a lot of interest in this stock. And so it's got potential leadership and maybe a stock that I do want to consider getting into, finding my way into. And now look, there was no reason for me to get into this while it was basing, but now that this is breaking out right there or right on the verge of a breakout of that 32.85 middle of the W, you could even say the 32.27 kind of provided you a little bit of an early entry if you kind of say, oh, it's a little bit of a double bottom with a handle. And the only problem with this one, the only reason why I didn't buy it today or actually Friday is when I was looking at it, is it's got earnings coming up in just a few days. So this is something that is making it tricky in this environment. There's a lot of setups that I've been watching, but earnings just right around the corner, and I haven't really wanted to step in front of those. It's very different when you've got earnings maybe 10 days away and you feel like, okay, maybe I can get a cushion in this, and then take a look at the expected range using the options market and say, okay, is this something that I could withstand this going to the bottom of that range, expected range? But it's hard to do that when you don't have any cushion that you're working with.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't either at this point, a little bit of a cushion, but we have a couple of days.
Yes.
So yeah, the market has had a lot of momentum lately. So with a small position, I have a little bit of time to make that assessment of
Mhm.
whether I'm going to continue to hold it or not.
And
Okay.
we've seen in some of these stocks
Yeah.
after the breakout, you can get cushion pretty quickly. 3%, 4%, in a day, and then now you've got some cushion. And if you build
Mhm.
upon that, you can build cushion in a very short order of time. But again, that's depending on the stock, right? You got to wait for the
Yeah.
stock to do that, and you can't count on it necessarily.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll have to see what happens with that. Next on our list, let's go to RBA. This is RB Global in the retail specialty group, also breaking out ahead of a double bottom ahead of earnings this week, Justin.
Yeah. So again, a little bit of a theme here. Now, this one is a little bit of a stair stepper. If you go to the weekly chart on this, it kind of bases comes,
Mm.
pops out, then bases, then pops out. So that's something to just kind of recognize in the personality. But this is another setup. It usually does get support right there at its 40 week moving average line. And it's got, a decent, earnings record. You can see 21% EPS growth rate and an earning stability of 5. The lower, the better here. So that's a pretty good amount of stability, and you see that in the earnings line. This is not something that's all over the place, up and down. It's fairly steady. So it's got some good chops on the fundamental side. It's in an area. They do auctions. There's a lot more on the trucks, equipment. And this is throughout the world. So interesting. This has been on my radar for a little bit. The fact that it got that support at the 200-day moving average line when so many stocks were below and are still below the 200-day moving average line, kind of put this in a different, yeah, a different caliber. And it's already above. It's 50, it's 21, it's 200. And again, you got another pattern here. 101.5 is the middle of the W. It's 2 cents below that right now. Right there, it kind of broke out on Friday, and just pulled back right to the top of that entry area.
Right. So it seems like for a stock that you have a little conviction in, maybe looking at it close to earnings is something to consider. But other things that you can do, right? Other strategies: wait for the earnings to come out and
Yeah,
then see what the results are like. Maybe you want to add on a position at that time, and then also you can look at the options market, right, Justin? If you wanted to see, I haven't looked at the options for this yet, but wanted to see what the closest out of the money strike is and maybe play it that way.
right. And so, just taking a look real quick, for the May 16th, 2025 expiration, this doesn't have the weekly option, so you have to go a little bit further out. There's not like a May 9th to look at for the end of this week. It's trading around 225 um, for the 105. Actually, you know what? Let's go to the 100. So the 100 is about trading around $4 and the for the call, and about uh, let's say 275 for the put. So that's about 675. And for a stock that's $100, that's about 6 or 7% for the expected move. You've got a little bit more time on that option than we usually are looking at for the weekly options. So again, that just gives you a sense of how much this can move. That's not too bad. That's not as much as we've seen for some of the stocks like Palantir that we'll talk about a little bit later, which you and I both have a position in. But it is a way for you to gauge. And look, if that's too much, if you're like, you know what, I don't think I'm going to get that kind of gain in that short a period of time, I think it's completely legitimate to just wait, because a lot of times those earnings, guess what? They can be the catalyst for breakouts. So it's always a little tricky when you break out ahead of the earnings, but a lot of times it can be that kind of final
Mhm.
catalyst that kind of pushes it up. Sometimes I'll even let the earnings report happen and then watch for digestion
Yeah.
of gains or a little flat action and then get in. But we are having more stocks with earnings behind them, so that
Yeah.
is a positive. We'll just have to see how some of these play out over the next couple weeks.
Absolutely. And in terms of the personality of this stock with earnings in the past, it has reacted positively to the last at least three reports here. One, it did have a nice little run after that, but the most recent report, it gapped up and then filled the gap and then some. So that's the other thing that can happen, and something to think about there as well. Like you said, wait for a couple of days, see if it'll set up again.
Yeah, and you certainly had the market going against you at
Yeah,
that point,
for
but
sure.
I think I think your overall lesson here, and this is important, is that you have history to look at. Why not use it? Just go to
Mhm.
those earnings reports, see what's been happening in the last few. You can go 3, 6 earnings reports back just to kind of get a sense what typically happens. How does it typically react? Because a lot of times there is kind of a feeling, that, oh, management will give guidance that's either way out there or way conservative that they know they can beat, and it does give you a sense of what is the personality of the stock. So I think that's a good exercise to use that history to your advantage to just give you one more bit of information.
Yeah, you never know. But you're right. Taking into context, well, what was the overall market doing at that time? That's a key part of the analysis there. Okay, last on our list to check in on is LOAR. This is Loar Holdings in the Aerospace Defense Group. A nice reversal on Friday and a follow-up today up 2.3%. This group is pretty stacked, Justin, with a lot of top performers.
Yeah, it's the group is number 3 out of 197. That kind of tells you that there's a lot of strength here. This is one of the stocks that was chosen by a leaderboard for its model portfolio, and it really did, kind of do a picture perfect pullback. It broke out, gave you some gains pretty quickly, letting you know, hey, you've got a stock with power. Did a quick little test on Friday, right down to the top of the base. Now, it would have been different if this had gone up to 20% and come all the way back, lost all those gains. But the fact that you're up only a little bit over 5%, less than 10%, and then kind of came back, plus the way that it closed on the day, closing up at the top of its range, was a nice test, a successful test of that area. Look, 40 to 50% of stocks will do this pullback. So it's something that you should be ready for. And whether you're going to say, okay, I'm going to sell into strength immediately because I'm doing swing trading, or you're like, I'm a position trader and I'm just going to hold on to that and maybe even add to it as if it does that test successfully, you can add a little bit on the successful test. And that's what happened here. And so this is looking good. I think the 100 level is going to be an important level. It's a nice round number. This is one where I'm not sure exactly why earnings seem to be so close. It says that earnings are coming in 15 days, but I would think that would be a little bit close to its last earnings report that happened in March. So I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but this already does have an earnings report behind it to a degree.
Mhm. Okay, well, speaking of earnings reports, we want to check in on a profile report out after the bell tonight, and that is Palantir. Justin, you and I both own this one. It looks like as of right now, as investors digest this report, shares down about 5.6 to 5.8% or so. It's had a big run up heading into the report. In terms of the numbers, it looks like either beating or meeting estimates at the very least oh, sorry, so it was a revenue beat. It looks like they met earnings estimates, so maybe that's a little sticking point there for traders. But they did boost their full year guidance with the CEO Alex Karp citing a tectonic shift in AI adoption. Your assessment, Justin, of the action here in terms of the expected move as of right now, this is within expectations.
Yeah, so the expected range was within 13%. Now remember, when you're using the options market, that doesn't tell you direction.
Yeah.
So, and actually, this is down 6. And very shortly after the close, it was up 7.
Yeah.
So this was almost like doing both directions. Hey, we're gonna we're gonna kind of go both ways.
Right.
So. This is well within its range. So not anything that is explosive. I was thinking about scaling back a little bit, but I scaled back in some other places, so I decided to just let this run. I didn't have a full position in it anyway. I was already a little light, so I'm like, you know what, I can go ahead and leave this because I think a lot of us had bought it as this crossed 100, and so I had a decent amount of cushion on this to hold through. So for me, being down 5%, in terms of my portfolio, because of the position size, that's
Yeah.
not doing significant damage to my portfolio. And look, there's a lot of time left because we can see what happens between now and tomorrow's open. A lot of
And
times,
tomorrow's
what I'll do
close.
is what's that?
And tomorrow's close.
And tomorrow's close, right? Because a lot of times what I'll do is I will look and say, okay, what happened in the first 5 minute bar? How did it initially react? A lot of times I'll set an alert at the low of that day. In fact, you know what? We can go to one other stock today that was having a little bit of a struggle, a strong stock, Netflix. I think you and I both own a position in this as well. But this was
Mhm.
a great example of a stock that had been going up very nicely. And the first 5 minute bar, it's actually that second bar is where the first 5 minute bar ended. But that's where I set my low today, my alert at the low, not necessarily a stop. I wasn't going to get out of it because I had enough cushion to withstand this. But the fact that news came out over the weekend and the way that it kind of closed very high in its range really kind of did a lot of recovery work, especially after that many days up for it to not
Yeah.
really give up anything. This is the kind of strength that we're looking for in our stocks, and so far that we're seeing in our market, really, because the S&P 500 did have all those gains and really hasn't given up much at this point. So yeah, we'll see if that continues, that resilience continues, but at the same time, be ready, looking at the exits just in case things get ugly.
Yep. Well said. Okay, well, we'll have to see how Palantir acts tomorrow. We know that overnight action doesn't necessarily always translate to the following day, but hey, this could get worse. It could, get into that double digit decline that the option market was expecting. We'll have to see. Like you
Yeah.
said, where it opens and then go from there. So,
And it's a reminder that the expected range is kind of usually at the extremes.
mm,
So 70, at least 70%, 80% usually fall within that range. But a lot of times you're going to be, it doesn't mean you have to go all the way to the edge of the range.
right.
That you're
Yes.
just going to fall within it. So
Yeah, a good reminder there, Justin. All right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
thanks for having me.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Now, don't forget today, live at 5 p.m. Eastern, we have our monthly market report with Jim Ropel. And we hope to see all of you there to get hedge fund manager Jim Ropel's thoughts on the crazy market action that we saw unfold in the month of April, plus top stocks that he's watching right now. Don't miss it, live at 5 p.m. on our Eastern, that is, on our YouTube channel today. So I'll see you there, everyone. And then we'll see you tomorrow morning on IBD Live, investors.com/IBD Live for all the details. And then we'll see you back here tomorrow after the close.